Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, I keep hearing the term artificial general intelligence at the moment, and we've all heard about artificial intelligence. Let's face it, there is no escaping it. But artificial general intelligence is something I wanted to learn a little bit more about. So I went out on a mission to find an expert and learn more about it. And that quest led me to Peter Voss, who is the world's foremost authority in artificial general intelligence. His company, Aigo, has created the world's first intelligent cognitive assistant, and Aigo was funded with personal investment of $10 million. And they currently manage millions of personalised customer service inquiries for so many household name brands. But I don't want to reveal too many spoilers right now, so buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to the US so we can speak with Peter about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, thanks for inviting me. I'm Peter Voss. I am the founder, CEO, and chief scientist of Aigo.ai. And my passion is really building artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence, the real AI, and commercializing that. So not only to do the research and to develop it, but also to actually see it being used by people in a profitable and productive way.
And you've had a fantastic career in technology, but I've got to ask, where did your love for tech come from, and how did you get involved with artificial general intelligence? I've got a feeling there's got to be a story there.
I don't know what sort of, my inherent interest in technology or just knowledge in general, I guess that started really early. But I got into electronics engineering. I worked as an electronics engineer, then started my own company. And around about that time, hardware started to just become programmable, whereas previously you couldn't really program hardware chips, but then you could start to program chips, and that was fantastic. So I fell in love with software, with programming, and my hardware company turned into a software company. I developed an ERP software system, quite a comprehensive system for medium-sized businesses to manage their inventory, their accounting, their salaries, salaries, and books, generally. That company became quite successful. We grew from 0 to 400 people quite rapidly, and actually listed the company. So that was quite a buzz. And it's really when I exited the company that I had enough sort of time on my hands and freedom to say, what do I really want to do? And the thing that struck me is how dumb software is. And, I say that being very proud of my own software, the software we developed, but still, if the programmer didn't think of something, didn't anticipate it, then, there wouldn't be any common sense. It would just come up with some error message or not really be able to handle it. So I really wanted to understand how we can build software that has some intelligence, that has some common sense, that can reason, basically act more intelligently. And so I took off 5 years to study intelligence deeply, starting with philosophy, epistemology, theory of knowledge. What is knowledge? How do we know anything? What is reality? And also cognitive psychology. What are IQ tests? What do they measure? Are they meaningful? How do children learn? How does our intelligence differ from animal intelligence? And to really deeply understand what's involved in intelligence to then try and build systems that have intelligence. So in 2001, I actually coined the term artificial general intelligence together with two other people, and we wrote a book on the topic. And that is to get away from the narrow AI perspective that almost everybody in AI is pursuing, to get back to the original dream, the original ideal of AI, to build thinking machines, systems that can think and learn and reason more the way humans do. And that's what I've been pursuing passionately for the last 20 years.
Love that. And I think for many business leaders and decision makers that are listening to this podcast today, they would have finally made peace with exactly what artificial intelligence is, or at least have a basic understanding. But more and more, we're all hearing about artificial general intelligence now. And you mentioned it a few moments ago. So just to get everyone on the same page, what is artificial general intelligence and how can the world benefit from it in your point of view?
Right. So when the term artificial intelligence was coined some 60 plus years ago, it was the idea really was to build a thinking machine, a machine that can, learn by interacting with the environment, and can has memory, has the ability to reason things through, to ask for clarification, and really to think and learn similar to the way humans do. But that turned out to be really, really hard. So over the decades, what happened is people instead started to pick just one particular problem that they wanted to solve. Famous one, of course, is the chess playing, IBM's Deep Blue. So said, okay, if we can build some software, build a computer that can play chess, then we've achieved some measure of intelligence. But the problem with that approach is it's not at all the same kind of intelligence that humans deploy. Because what really happens is that the engineer or the data scientist figures out how to solve that particular problem and then to turn it into code or into a data model. So it's really the external intelligence, the intelligence of the engineer that is being put into code and to solve that one particular problem. And that's really what the field of AI is dominated by, is that approach, that narrow AI. Pick a particular problem, whether it's sort of container optimization or medical diagnosis, or chess playing, or even image recognition. It really is the external intelligence combined with some algorithms that are written or a lot of data mining that will produce a result. So a couple of us came to that realization that AI is really on the wrong track by pursuing this narrow AI in terms of the ultimate goal. It may be very useful to have narrow AI to solve a problem, and clearly we're seeing that in many areas, but ultimately we want machines that can learn by themselves. And this is why we coined the term artificial general intelligence to really make that distinction.
And here in 2021, can you tell me a little bit more about Aigo and how you created what is essentially the world's first intelligent cognitive assistant? Sounds incredibly cool, and one of the reasons I invited you on the podcast today. But can you tell me more about them?
Yes. So Aigo.ai, my current company, we actually were founded 7 years ago and spent 5 years just focusing on the technical development. We, on purpose had no customers. About 2 years ago, we decided we were now ready to commercialize the, our technology. And our focus right now is on providing intelligent chatbots, intelligent conversational AI to large enterprise customers. And a quick way to describe this is we call it a chatbot with a brain. And that kind of shows the distinctions that basically everybody else's chatbot doesn't have a brain. And you can discover that very quickly if you utilize any of the current chatbots other than Aigo. They don't remember what you said 2 sentences ago, never mind what you said last week. They really don't understand more complex language. You cannot have a conversation with them. There's no reasoning, there's no memory, no disambiguation. And you really need a brain of thoughts, an artificial brain, to give you that intelligence that allows you to have a much more personalized experience and to be able to have ongoing, meaningful conversations. So that is our focus. But it's actually the second generation of our technology that we are commercializing. I originally started developing the technology in 2001. We spent quite a number of years in pure R&D mode. And the first generation of our technology actually launched in 2008 in a company called SmartAction. And SmartAction focuses on voice interaction. When you call into a company and you talk to a computer, most people hate that experience. Press 1 for this and 2 for that, or get stuck very quickly. So in SmartAction, we basically have an IVR, interactive voice response, an IVR with a brain. So we've obviously developed the technology a lot further now for Aigo, and are commercializing it.
And are there any other areas that you think that really sets Aigo apart from all the other chatbots out there that people listening might be aware of, and all the different tools available? Is there anything else that makes you guys unique, do you think?
The big difference is, and I think any company that has implemented a chatbot currently or has investigated it will know just how limited they are and the frustrations that they have. Almost every company we talk to say, yes, we either tried to implement a chatbot and we abandon it, it failed, or we have a chatbot, but it's really not working very well. Exactly for that reason, that they don't have a brain. So it's really the lack of understanding of customer personalization, the lack of effectiveness and customer satisfaction because of the lack of intelligence. So it's pretty obvious for anyone who's interacted with a chatbot or who's companies that have deployed them. So really the difference is how many of the conversations that you're having can you automate, and what customer satisfaction do you get out of that? How effective is it, and how pleasant is it for the customer to use?
Absolutely. I think my personal pet hate is a chatbot that pretends not to be a chatbot, but you know what it is. But I'm curious, who are your target audiences? And do you have a use case you could possibly share just to bring to life what we're talking about here?
Yes, certainly. While I can't talk too much about specific cases, but we cover from banks, insurance companies, media companies, retail, where you have, for example, one of our clients, we have a personalized concierge service to buy gifts that it will remember what you've bought before, who you bought it for, and you can have a natural language conversation, to change your order or to find out where it is, to place new orders, to change addresses and things of that nature. So those are the kinds of applications. It's really basic customer service that current chatbots can't handle effectively, but don't necessarily require human judgment involved. So those are the kind of applications we're targeting. And typically, we're working with large companies, who have big call centers, with hundreds of people servicing clients. So the advantage is that you eliminate wait times, because we can obviously make thousands of our automated agents available instantaneously. It can have immediate access to all of the information, to prior conversations you've had. So if somebody's calling back to find out what the current status is or to make a change, the system will actually know what you previously called about and can utilize that information.
And what I'd love to hear more about is the team that makes all this possible that we're talking about today. Is there anything you can share about the team at Aigo.ai?
Yes, it's actually very interesting because as we talk to other technical teams and so on, people ask us, how many AI people do you have on the team, and what technology are you using, and isn't it difficult to find AI people? And the interesting thing is, we actually only about a third of our staff are software engineers. 2/3 of our technical team are what I call AI psychologists. So it's a profession I invented, but it's really a combination of linguists and cognitive psychologists. So people who have training in linguistics and cognitive psychology to be able to teach our system, our we call it Aigo, of course, to teach Aigo the particular background knowledge and skills required to do a certain task. So a lot of it is really about teaching Aigo rather than programming Aigo, and that's sort of fundamental to the approach that we have. And we have a fantastic team. Because our technology is so unique, we don't really expect people to have prior artificial intelligence experience. In fact, if anything, it could be a handicap because they'd have to unlearn things. So it's really just smart people who have a good grasp of language and cognitive psychology that we have as our AI psychologists. And then the engineers we have just, having good engineers that can also relate to the approach that we have with, the sort of cognitive approach that we have.
And I appreciate you probably can't share any names or particular brand names that you're working with at the moment, but is there anything you can share about what you're looking at right now and what you're working on?
Yes. As I mentioned, the one example is a company that provides a very wide range of gifts, where we are providing essentially a concierge assistant to their 10 million customers that they have, that they can interact with Aigo, and Aigo can help them, with whatever they want in the company, whether it's to place an order, to change an order, to find out where it is, or to change information about their account and things of that nature. We are also working with telco companies. Obvious support, that's always a headache if your modem or your phone line goes down, to get support, to get help on that. We're working with hotels where you obviously have a lot of internal communication in terms of availability and scheduling of staff, but then also customer facing, of course, to make reservations, to change them, to order things within the hotel. So those are all things that Aigo is ideally suited to. We're also working with healthcare companies as for example, to help people manage diabetes, where you can have a personal assistant that can help you with your diet and lifestyle choices, and help you manage your condition. So they're really anywhere where a conversational agent can help some individual with something. Another thing worth mentioning is we have a project where Aigo is integrated into Salesforce to help salespeople better manage their workload and their customers. So they can ask, what is my next appointment? Aigo will then tell them background. They can ask, what can you tell me about the potential client, the prospect? Do they have any hobbies? Do they have any kids? And if that information is available, then Aigo can give them this information. And then after the sales call, they could tell Aigo to update Salesforce to say, remind me next Monday to follow up, send them brochure X, and let my boss know what's going on. That kind of thing. So it's really an assistant to a salesperson to manage their lives. So many different applications like that.
Fantastic. And something I always ask every guest on the podcast around their area of expertise is there any myths or misconceptions that might frustrate you that you just want to finally lay to rest today? So as an authority in artificial general intelligence, is there anything that frustrates you, or are there any misconceptions out there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of a very easy easy one to pinpoint. So we've gone through different eras in artificial intelligence, and for the longest time in 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was all really based on logic systems, expert systems. That was the main thrust of AI. Now, in the last 10 years, last eight years in particular, it's moved very sharply to something called deep learning, machine learning, or big data approaches, statistical big data approaches. So there was a certain breakthrough which happened about 8 years ago, that technology that had been around for quite a long time, people finally figured out by using a lot of data and a lot of computing power how they could do very powerful categorization. And so this deep learning, machine learning really dominates the AI space to the extent that people don't even know, most people don't even know that there's any other type of AI. As powerful as this technology is, I mean, it's very powerful in improving, for example, speech recognition. Alexa and Siri benefit a lot from the speech recognition, not ultimately understanding what the person is saying, but converting your speech into text that can then be utilized in some way. Image recognition for autonomous cars has improved, very significantly. But of course, the main driving force with deep learning, machine learning is to do more targeted advertising, unfortunately. So, but that's worth probably trillions of dollars, and that's what's driving the industry. Now, the myth that I like to just address here is that is not real AI. That is not going to get us to the kind of artificial intelligence that we're all looking for, where it can really, be a personal assistant and can understand. You can have an ongoing conversation. It's just fundamentally the wrong technology for that. But unfortunately, that isn't commonly known. So deep learning, machine learning is still narrow AI. And what we really want is artificial general intelligence, which requires a different approach, a different architecture, something called, DARPA calls this the third wave of AI. It's essentially a cognitive architecture.
Love that. And it's got to feel good to get that off your chest. Hopefully we can right a few wrongs with this podcast today. But for anyone that would like to dig a little bit deeper on the whole subject of artificial general intelligence, or indeed anything we talked about today, what's the best way of finding you online and also contacting your team if they are left with any questions or they just want to carry this conversation on we started?
Yes, well, that's very easy. Our website, Aigo.ai, Aigo.ai. We have a resource page there, which has some demos and articles. I've also written quite a lot of articles on not just AI and what we've been talking about today, artificial general intelligence and so on, but also other areas of interest such as ethics and free will and longevity and things of that nature. And you can find all of those on medium.com, just my name, Peter Voss. But Aigo.ai, our website, has links to that. And anyone can contact me as well on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, very easy to find.
Well, I'll add the link to your Medium blog there and the website on the blog post that will accompany this episode, just so anyone listening will be able to find you nice and easily. But one of the reasons I record this podcast every day is to take some of these complex technologies and demystify them and talk about them in a language that everyone can understand. And I love the way that you've talked about artificial general intelligence today in a language that anyone can understand, and also demystified the technology and busted a few myths along the way too. But more than anything, just thank you for spending a few minutes with me today to share your story.
Great. Well, thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, because I certainly learned a thing or two about artificial general intelligence. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, Peter has been instrumental in the development of cognitive artificial intelligence and even coined the term. But I loved hearing more about how the world can benefit from artificial general intelligence, and also what they're working on right now. But I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on anything we talked about today. And equally, if you'd like to come on here and share your story, there's an open invitation for you all. There is about a 6-week wait at the moment. We're fully booked up with, I think we've got 60 guests booked in, ready to go, which is a great problem to have. But what means more to me than anything, though, is that you're tuning into this podcast each and every day in, I think, 176 countries or something, I think I saw on the podcast host the other day. You are what makes this show worthwhile, so please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. at Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. And if you've only just joined us, you'll find over 1,500 interviews on there, including some interviews with some big hitters and some random ones, from Gary Vaynerchuk to William Shatner and Wendy Williams, but I'll let you discover those on your own. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.